Hey, Amber here. I haven't been on for quite a while. I've been having a rough go of everything. I wanted to just put something on my YouTube and my Facebook, Mother's Rights, for everyone to look at, especially parents that are going through the issues with CPS, or mostly CPS is who this applies to, but it's coming from the website www.congress.gov. I'll put a link down below for YouTube, and then for Facebook, I'll link it. However, I don't know how to do that yet, but it's called the Parental Rights and Responsibilities Act of 1995. And it pretty much covers it's to protect the fundamental right of a parent to direct the upbringing of a child and for other purposes. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled, Section 1, short title. This act may be cited as the Parental Rights and Responsibilities Act of 1995. Findings and the purpose. The findings. Congress finds that the Supreme Court has regarded the right of parents to direct the upbringing of their children as a fundamental right, implicit in the concept of ordered liberty within the 14th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, as specified in Meyer v. Nebraska and Pierce v. Society of Sisters. The role of parents in the raising and rearing of their children is of inestimable value and deserving of both praise and protection by all levels of government. The tradition of Western civilization recognizes that parents have the responsibility to love, nurture, train, and protect their children. Some decisions of federal and state courts have treated the right of parents not as a fundamental right, but as a judicial review being applied to government conduct that adversely affects parental rights and prerogatives. Prerogatives, not prerogatives. Parents face increasing intrusions into their legitimate decisions and prerogatives by government agencies in situations that do not involve traditional understandings of abuse or neglect, but simply are a conflict of parenting philosophies. Governments should not interfere in the decisions and actions of parents without compelling justification. And the traditional four-step process used by courts to evaluate cases concerning the right of parents described in paragraph 1 appropriately balance the interest of parents, children, and government. Purposes. The purpose of this act are to protect the right of parents to direct the upbringing of their children as a fundamental right, to protect children from abuse and neglect as the terms have been traditionally defined and applied in statutory laws, such protection being a compelling government interest, while protecting the rights of children to acknowledge that the rights involve responsibilities, and specifically that parents have the responsibility to see that their children are educated for the purposes of literacy and self-sufficiency as specified by the Supreme Court in Wisconsin versus Yoder. To preserve the common law tradition that allows parental choices to prevail in a health care decision for a child, unless by neglect or refusal, the parental decision will result in danger to the child's life or result in serious physical injury of the child. To fix a standard of judicial review for parental rights, leaving to the courts the application of the rights in particular cases based on the facts of the cases and law as applied to the facts. To reestablish a four-step process to evaluate cases concerning the right of parents described in paragraph 1. That A, requires a parent to initially demonstrate that the action in question arises from the right of the parent to direct the upbringing of the child, and a government has interfered with or usurped the right, and shifts the burden of production and persuasion to the government to demonstrate that the interference or usurpation is essential to accomplish a compelling government interest. And the method of intervention or usurpation, I'm assuming that's how you say it, I'm not sure, I haven't looked it up, by the government is the least restrictive means of accomplishing the compelling interest. Section 3, definitions. I'm going to skip that part. You can read it for yourself. It's just basically appropriate evidence for a case in which a government seeks temporary or preliminary action. It has to be evidence that demonstrates probable cause, and for a case in which the government seeks final action, there has to be clear and convincing evidence. Defines parent, child, right of parent to the upbringing. Let's see. Prohibition on interfering with or usurping rights of parents is Section 4. No federal, state, or local government or any official of such a government acting under color of law shall interfere with or usurp the right of a parent to direct the upbringing of the child of the parent. Strict scrutiny. No exception to Section 4 shall be permitted unless the government or official is able to demonstrate by appropriate evidence that the interference or usurpation is essential to accomplish a compelling government interest and is narrowly drawn or applied in a manner that is the least restrictive means of accomplishing the compelling interest. Claim or defense. Any parent may raise a violation of this act in an action in federal or state court or before an administrative tribunal of appropriate jurisdiction as a claim or a defense. Domestic relations and disputes between parents. This act shall not apply to domestic relations cases concerning the appointment of parental rights between parents in custody disputes or any other dispute between parents. Pretty much, CPS is generally the problem. Judges making orders that are not compliant with the statutes. The statutes are put in place to protect us and our children, just like the penal code is important for law, and it's pretty much what they have to go by. Family code is what they have to go by. And in my case, there's an extensive amount of family code violations and constitutional or federal laws, whatever, that's being violated and has been violated for 13 years. So make sure you read this stuff and educate yourself. When they say probable cause, when it comes to your children, all they really have the right to do is request that they have visual confirmation that your children are okay. You have to be careful because schools will overstep their boundaries and allow people to speak to your children. You need to go to school and make sure that you have on record that you don't want your child speaking with anybody without you being present, because CPS does have a tendency to either A, persuade children to say things that they wouldn't have said otherwise, or B, take something they've said out of context. And schools are also teaching kids that nicotine is a drug, and I guess it is, but ran into a situation with a friend of mine's child that said his mother was on drugs, and that she goes outside and smokes drugs all the time. And when I asked him exactly what he was talking about, I said, when was this? He was talking about cigarettes, and he said, yeah, that's a drug. And I said, okay, you're right, but you have to be careful what you say when you're saying I tell my mom she's got to get off drugs. People are going to get the wrong idea. So schools aren't necessarily thinking about these things before they teach kids. And honestly, I believe that when it comes to sex ed and drugs and things like that, things of that nature, I think parents should be the ones responsible for teaching their kids these things, because you never know what anybody else is going to teach them. I guess it goes in the same category as for a while they were disputing the teaching evolution and creation. So I don't know. It's different parents have different ideas of what's appropriate and what's not. And in my opinion, they share just enough to pique curiosity, and they don't explain or educate enough on all the areas that they need to receive education. And like I said, it's something I feel I should be teaching my daughter. Anyway, www.congress.gov. It's the Parental Rights and Responsibilities Act of 1995. Check that out. If CPS is involved, don't let them run you over like they did me. They removed my child while I was in a domestic violence shelter in a protected situation. No access to anything that would harm her or myself. I couldn't even contact people on Facebook. My location was confidential, and they still managed to remove my child. So that's all. I just wanted to share that so I could get something out there and I guess let everyone know I'm still alive. I shall return. Thanks for watching.